Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Integrating Digital Literacy in HSE Instruction, a free resource from Essential Education. And today our webinar is sponsored by and presented by Essential Education. So I'll introduce Dan Griffith, Charlie Weeks, and Steph Haggard, and I'll turn it over to them. If you want to say hello in the chat box, you can let us know where you're calling in from today. And with that, I'll turn it over to them. Thank you.
Dan, we can't hear you.
How about that? That's probably
there you
go. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us on this summer afternoon and taking some time to meet with us as we are launching an absolutely brand new resource from Essential Education. My name is Dan Griffith. I'm the president of the Education Division. And I have two of my wonderful colleagues here with me, Charlie Weeks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Charlie Weeks, Director of Client Success with Essential Education. Been in adult ed for about 15 years and at Essential Ed working with the training and support team, and excited to be here and help introduce this new guide to you all.
And we also have our educator support specialist, Steph Haggard.
Hey everyone, I'm just here to sort of smile and look pretty for the rest of the time. No, just kidding. So I've been in adult ed for about 10 years. I'm actually watching chat and I just want to shout out every single one of you. So you all know me. It's okay. We've already talked.
That's it. Well, we're glad she's here, and she's the foundation behind this whole resource. So she's not just here to look pretty, although she definitely makes Charlie and I look better. No doubt about that. So. Well, we're, like I said, really excited to launch this resource, and we're going to we've got like 5 slides, and the rest of it's going to be in resources talking about how to integrate digital literacy skills into your HSE or ABE instruction. We think this is obviously a really important area. The research has, shown us that this is something that's important to you as educators, and something we know that people need in order to be successful in life. So with that, Charlie's going to start us off talking a little bit about how these skills are important and why.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. And you kind of just hit on it, the fact that I think we all know the statistics. I think as Dan and I were looking at this session, we'd be remiss not to just highlight a few or set the stage. And so as you can see on the screen, a few statistics that jumped out to me as we were preparing for this. On the left side, digital illiteracy by demographic. And I think, again, from our personal experience in the classrooms and in our programs, we would probably attest to this. And even though this, the U.S. Department of Ed did this survey or a study in 2018, I think the results are probably still fairly valid. Foreign-born adults, 36% digitally illiterate, and adults without a high school diploma, 41% digitally illiterate. And so I think we would all agree, those numbers might be a few percentage points higher or lower in the last 5 years, maybe even a few more. But I think those are the groups that we work with and we know we need to assist, help achieve digital literacy skills and gain those skills. And I think the why, right, is to the point on the right of the screen is the job market. And you can see there that, again, this was from 2016 from the Brookings Institution, but 70% of jobs then of over 500 occupations were needing a medium or high level of digital skills. And that was almost 10 years ago. So, I mean, you could see that percentage has probably grown 80, 90% today to the skills that are needed. And so I think you all could attest to that and what you've seen with your students and maybe some of the barriers that they faced. And that's why we wanted to create this guide, bring this to market so that we could assist you all and assist these demographics and these students. And then the next slide, finally, and kind of to bring it home in full circle, Essential Ed worked with COABE, I believe, Dan, in 2022, correct? And we sent out the survey to adult educators. So this was for you all specifically to respond to. And we have 3 kind of answers there on the chart, on the graph, that 63% of teachers and those that responded to the survey said developing digital literacy skills in students is one of the biggest struggles. So from 2022, 2021, and the same with teachers. So students and teachers needed and need those digital literacy skills. And then finally, 50% of survey respondents said that keeping students engaged was another one of their large struggles. And I could see, I think that was in relation to the pandemic and some of the different things that went with that. But all of these statistics show, and I think reaffirmed what we all know very well, is that digital literacy is important. It's been told to us that it's important. And I think this guide and this research we're showing is going to hope to be a bridge for you all to figure out even more so how to bring that to bear in the classroom.
Thanks, Charlie. And absolutely, the struggle is real, so to speak, right? We know that. The question is, what's out there that can help impact that? And what we've seen over the years is companies like Essential Ed, we have a wonderful program, you're going to see a little bit of it today, called Computer Essentials, have created content for learning, but the how to integrate that into all of the other responsibilities that an adult education teacher has, an adult education program or administrator has, is really important and lacking. There's been a lot of people saying, yes, you need to teach digital literacy skills, and there's content for digital literacy skills, but how do I work that in and day out, into what I'm doing in the classroom is not been fully addressed. And so we want to spend a little time today and show you what we put together to help with that. And so when you look at this really broadly, there's kind of three different models that we see implemented or being implemented across the country. The first is this idea of what I lovingly call loose mandates. And so this is when someone, might say, look, we need to start teaching digital literacy skills to our students. It's important. We saw the COABE journal on it. We've read articles about it. We see the statistics about the need for digital literacy. We know that people in our community need more digital literacy skills. But that's really it. There's a conversation that says we need this, but there's no specific time set aside for teachers that says you're going to teach during this block of time. And maybe there's no real specific core of objectives that are given to a teacher. It says you have to teach these 10 elements of digital literacy. And so that first model is out there in large degree in adult education, where we know we need to do it, but we don't have a really strict set of standards or time devoted to it. The second concept is that we've seen states and localities and programs that have said, no, we absolutely want you to teach these standards, this curriculum, this set of objectives. This is what we want students to be able to do when they leave our program. And so those mandates are there to teach some set of objectives. And teachers are given those or exposed to those. They understand to some degree what those objectives are, but they're not given specific time necessarily, like, this is going to happen Monday and Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in a formal class. So you have objectives, but you don't have a very specific set of time set aside. And then the third situation, and the reason it's kind of under this line, is the situation where you actually are being asked to teach digital literacy skills in a class. So you have a class in your program called digital literacy or something of that nature, computer basics, whatever that happens to be. And in that scenario, you have time and you have objectives that are set aside for teaching this. And so those are kind of the three models that we see broadly across the US right now, and I suspect across the world. And so we're really interested in which category most describes you today, for those of you that are here. And I'm going to launch a poll, if I can find it. And we'd ask you just to respond to this one question. And I'm going to turn it over to Steph to talk a little bit about it as well.
Hey everyone, while you're answering that poll question, what we'd love to also see you do in chat is let us know what's the biggest challenge you're having or that you've had. And we can see that some of you are already putting that in there. Here's what we'd also like to ask is that when you give us a response, if you let us know if you think you're type 1, type 2, or type 3, because the more information you all give us, then the more we're able to take that, turn it into yet other helpful things for all of you, and aim, at helping you with as many issues as we can. Like I see everyone starting to do it, so thanks. So my push while you're doing this is my chat is that as adult educators, we know that our students struggle with digital literacy. We also know that we struggle with digital literacy. So a lot of us are really scared to teach digital literacy. And I can tell you, when Dan and Charlie came to me and said, hey, why don't we do this together? It was the worst fear I've ever had in my life, that I was going to have to do this, because most of you know I'm not that great with it. I can tell you that as I worked through these lessons, I learned more than I ever thought I would. I've worked through all of them about 2 or 3 times, some of them more than others. And then when we just got this back, and I don't know if Dan mentioned it already and how he's going to, you all are getting to see this very first thing because it just got done basically yesterday. Here we are with you all today. So I was looking at it last night. And I already was looking at it being like, oh my gosh, I remember that. I need to put that into practice. I need to work on that. So I just hope that as you're thinking about your challenges, that you can find answers in the guide for that, or you can reach out and let us help you. I come from a type 2, just, to give you all what that would look like. I'm a type 2. We were required through different grants and all to offer digital literacy. I can tell you for the most part, that was essential education for me. That's how I used it to check off the box. And then once I started really getting into the program again, I was so excited to see what else I could do with it. So I hope you all enjoy it. And I'm now reading all your comments, and I'm going to turn it over to Charlie, who's going to take you all through the new program.
Charlie, I'm just going to interrupt real quick to just
Please
talk
do.
about the poll before we go to that. So just, I think you can see this. Hopefully it's sharing the results. Pretty interesting. Out of 133 folks that answered this poll, we have about 30% that are type 1, 41% type 2, and 29% type 3. So a really even split. And you can see why these 3 models are, broadly in place across the U.S. out of just this random. I mean, we had no idea what we were going to see when we launched this, and you see this kind of even split. So again, we would ask that as you leave any comment, just start it with a 1, 2, or a 3. That way, when we go back and read the chat, which we are going to do to figure out what else can we provide or how can we do more for you, we have that 1, 2, or 3. And any comment you leave, just put 1, 2, 3, because it helps us to understand if you're a type 2 person, these are your types of comments. And if you're a type 1, these are the types of things that you need or you're commenting about or whatever. So we just would appreciate that. And I promise you, we're going to try to use it to help you even more going forward. All right, now, Charlie, you're off and running.
All right, let's go for it. Let's see if I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Maybe you have to unshare, Dan, and then I'll.
Okay, let me unshare. There we go.
Right.
There you go.
All right, awesome. All right, everyone. So yeah, we're gonna jump in, and as Dan highlighted and shared, and then Steph got to share a little bit more. I mean, those were the things we were wrestling with as we created this guide. Knowing that what it looked like in each one of your classrooms and programs was potentially vastly different. So we worked on kind of zeroing in on those 3 different implementation models and then providing specific guidance for those 3. So without further ado, let's jump in. So here's our new digital literacy implementation guide. It's going to be available via email campaign on our website and in a follow-up to you all soon. But we're really excited to share it with you today. I'm going to go ahead and just jump straight in, and we can talk a little bit about a couple specific components of this guide. So jumping straight in, the first section, we introduce these models, the models that Dan just talked about, and we highlight how it might look different. And then not only that, but then we provide specific ways and guidance about how we're going to assist you in the journey of implementing digital literacy based on the model that you self-select as. And you can see here, we go into detail, making sure that you understand kind of what that model is and what it looks like, potentially how much time you might have available. And then some of the pieces of the example lesson plans that we've created, some of the places in those lesson plans where you will be able to focus your time knowing that those are the specific pieces that will match up with the time that you might have allotted. So we're really excited about this initial section and getting to really help readers of this figure out kind of who they are and kind of what it is that they need. So there are specifics. We're going to have pacing guides. We're going to have example lesson plans. We have a lot of other things in this guide, but one of the other things we wanted to make sure we didn't miss is just some general strategies. And with Essential Ed, with a lot of our resources, our webinars, the things that we do, we want to make sure that it hits a wide audience. And so with this guide, we included a lot of general activities and some tips on how they can potentially be used to integrate digital literacy topics. So what I'm sharing on this screen right here is just a few specific vocabulary activities, some things like the KWL chart, Frayer model, or a semantic map, and a couple ideas on what those can look like. We also have instructions and information on class discussions, writing, projects, application and practice of those digital skills. So this guide has a section where it kind of talks about those specific activities and ways you can integrate those into classes. And as you can see on the bottom of this page, even some tips on how to do that as well. So outside of the models, outside of the general implementation and general activities, we wanted to make sure that users of Essential Education, of Computer Essentials, had a really good idea of, what is Computer Essentials and what's included in that. And they had that scope and sequence, but even for non-Computer Essentials users, what potentially is a good scope and sequence for anyone looking to implement digital literacy. And so you can see here, we wanted to make sure that we provided an overview of all of the content in the scope and sequence that we're going to be talking about. And so you can see on the left side, we show the number of modules, the number of units, and then it's an approximation, but that's a question that our trainers get asked all the time is, how long does this take to complete? And so we included that information in a few different places so that readers of this guide and that users could understand that. And again, part of that visualization of how do I work this in and providing more of those specifics. Dan, was there anything else you wanted to mention on this?
Oh, sorry, I'm all caught up in the in the chat. Yes, there is one thing, which is even if you're not using Computer Essentials, our course, we hope that as you look at this, and one of the reasons that we felt like this is applicable even beyond just using Computer Essentials is this scope and sequence in the right-hand side, the Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, is built off the IC3 standards. We've correlated to North Star and the digital equity standards from Seattle. And so this scope and sequence is a good scope and sequence, even if you're out creating your own content or pulling things off YouTube or using another program or something like that. The order of just these units and what we're talking about here could really help you formulate a plan in your classroom for being successful with digital literacy, regardless of whether it's ours. So we hope you'll see it in a broad sense like that as well. Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you. That's why I tagged you in. I knew you'd be able to say it a little bit better than me.
Charlie, one of the questions was how it could be used for in other types of classes too, if it's not just for digital literacy, but can it be worked into other things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think as I mentioned above with some of the specific activities, I shouldn't say specific, the general activities that were mentioned, there are ideas and ways to integrate certain topics, certain ideas into different ways. And so I know as teachers, we kind of sometimes get into habits of, I always like to do this for introductions, or I do this for a conclusion, or for this type of practice. And so this guide is going to provide you with a lot of examples and a lot of ways to assess and to evaluate and to introduce and to summarize lots of content. So you can read through this and take some of the ideas and activities that we provide. And again, I think there'll be a lot of educators that can envision, I like that template of how that's done, but I want to use it with this type of academic content. So I think it can be. I think it's something that can be used. in a lot of different ways. And so I think we tried to provide that. We had at least 4 different instructors writing lessons and lesson plans. And so you're going to see there's different styles. We're not going to get to all of them today, but there's a lot of different types of activities and examples. So, all right, let's keep moving. So we have content overview moving forward. So as the reader of this guide, I picked what model, what type I am. I got a good idea of some general activities. I got a really good idea of what content is available in a scope and sequence. But then maybe a question you're asking is, okay, well, that's great. I saw in the chat, it's 28 hours or it's this amount of time. How do I fit that in? And so that was the next piece that we kind of wrestled with was, providing you all with an example of what it could look like. And so we have pacing guides for each one of those models. So I'm just going to look at model 1 here with you all, and you'll kind of see a little bit of what these look like. And so with model 1, if you remember with what Dan talked about and what I showed, we were kind of thinking of that educator or that teacher who might want to spend anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes, maybe a week. So you don't have a ton of time. We understand that. But how can we still fit some good content in? And so we have some specific activities that you all can do that correlate to the lesson plans in this document for each specific unit. So for this first unit, computer fundamentals, computer skills overview, we have a few different activities that you can do that will help you introduce the content, introduce the topic, and then give the students the work to work on inside or outside of class, and then come back, whether it's at the end of the week or at your designated time, to kind of summarize or conclude, and then be able to move on to the next thing. So this is a pretty basic example of the pacing guides that we have. And as since this is model 1 and there's not as much time being spent, as we move to model 2 and model 3, you can kind of see the activities get more involved. So we have an introduction, a unit introduction, the lesson warm up, the actual computer essentials instruction where the teacher's interacting with the computer essentials content, and then a conclusion. So we have lots of warm-ups and ways to get students engaged, and then they go into the content and then can come back. And then finally, with our pacing guide number 3, it includes additional activities. So extension activities, assessments, more practice. So we're slowly building that time based on the model that was described. And so for those that have their own digital literacy class or computer fundamentals, computer essentials class, we're trying to provide even more content and activity for those teachers and those students. Steph or Dan, was there anything that you would like to either have me talk about or that you feel like is important for this section?
I just think as Charlie shows you the lesson plans that are going to come up next, you'll see how, although that shows a week, it's really going to give you more breadth and more flexibility. So we're not trying to map every detail of everything that you do, but we're trying to give you the skeleton and the bones to figure out kind of how you want to take it and make it your own as well.
Yeah, great, Dan. Thank you. So moving on. So after the pacing guides, we get into the bulk of this guide. I think this guide is somewhere around 150 pages, and I would venture to say 100 of those 150 pages are these 17 lesson plans. So you can see here we have one lesson plan for each unit. So computer skills overview, unit 1, we have an example lesson plan. For getting started, unit 2, we have one example lesson plan for using computers, and so on and so forth. And so in this guide, while there are more lessons, I think there's around 70 or 80 lessons, we wanted to give you a good start. And like Dan said, we didn't want to map it out completely, but wanted to give you a good idea of kind of practicing, integrating this content so that then you can then take it and figure out what works. And so this is one example from each unit. I want to show you what we started with. We wanted to make sure that you understand our lesson plan format. And so we have these different sections, obviously the unit name, the lesson, the specific lesson name, the objective, and where we got that information from the content map section of our LMS, what preparation is needed. And as it says here, each lesson in this guide lists the resources needed. Sometimes the resources link to examples found online, and sometimes it requires the teacher to create a template. So we're kind of just letting you know, when you get to this part in these lesson plans, here's what you will see and here's what you should expect. And then as we talked about, a unit introduction, so we're kind of doing a big picture introduction. And one of the great things about these lesson plans, if I scroll back up just a little bit, I'm sorry, is in parentheses to the right of the sections, we let you know, depending on what type you are, what model, that's where you can zero in on. So for unit introduction, we recommend that types 1, 2, and 3 do that. We feel like that's important. So then a little bit more of a specific lesson warm up, that might, if you have more time for models 2 and 3, it makes sense to potentially do that. And then as we scroll down a little bit more, the computer essentials content, this is where you all, if you have the time, would go in and potentially teach or assign or show the actual computer essentials content in your class or in your distance learning class. We wrap up with a conclusion and some activities there. And then for those types that have more time to spend, we have a more activity section that has a lot of various extra activities. And so we'll look at examples of what that looks like here. So we have this as a way to introduce readers to what our lesson plans are going to look like. And then I'll go ahead and jump into just the first unit as the example, and we'll look at it just very briefly. Let me zoom in so you can kind of see this a little bit better. So this is actually filled out. So for unit number 1, computer skills overview, we're going to do a lesson plan for the course for common computer skills. We say course introduction because this is the first thing. So it makes sense to introduce what computer essentials is, or potentially digital literacy. We have our objectives. We have our preparation. So as students are getting started, one of the things that we put is a short digital literacy survey. It might be good to figure out where your students are at. In the unit introduction, we always include all of the lessons so that the teacher knows everything that is in that unit. They can see that. So again, similar to that content overview, we're wanting to be very explicit so teachers can see everything that is in that unit. And then any vocabulary in that unit. So things that we thought as we watched the content and did the work inside of Computer Essentials, what are those things that students might encounter that they might not know? And at the bottom, we have this every single time. Hey, you might want to pre-teach these or just keep these in mind as something that you might want to just make sure you mention. The lesson warm-up is going to vary. Sometimes there's one activity, sometimes there's a few. A lot of times it starts with a discussion or a brainstorm or a writing activity, or even just a, hey, watch this video or look at this resource, and then let's come back together as a class. So in this, it's giving you specific instructions that, hey, if you want around the 2:15 mark of the video inside of Essential Ed, you can stop it and ask students questions. So we pull out a lot of content from the lessons in Computer Essentials and give that to teachers, say, hey, here's a good place to stop. Here's a good place to ask questions, or to kind of have students stop so you can really zero in on that specific part. And then finally, with the Computer Essentials content, this is kind of the meat of the lesson plans of ways that you can teach with the content. We talk about, hey, if you're going to have students work independently, here's how to assign the lesson. If you want to do it whole group, here's how to display the lesson on the whiteboard. And then we give other specific ideas of things you can do while you're showing the lesson. And then we even have, if you're working with small groups in your class, maybe not everybody's working on it at the same time, some ways you can look at that. And then finally, each lesson plan has a conclusion. So we have, again, it could be one activity, a few activities, and all of these are kind of optional suggestions of things that you can do. But we wanted to always provide probably a little bit more than what was necessary to give educators and teachers choices and options of things to look at. Oh, that might fit. Oh, that might not be, that might be too much. I don't have time for that. But we really feel like there's a lot of kind of ways that educators can kind of pick and choose. And then finally, the more activities, the more you can see here, there's more practice. So like on this initial introduction, figuring out where students are at with their typing, ways to assess. We always have kind of examples of ways that a teacher can assess the student learning, and then extension activities. I really liked this one. One of our trainers and former teachers wrote this. about down here, I believe it was writing a letter to themselves that they'll look at the end of the course. And I thought, oh, that's really, I like that. I like that idea of starting with the survey. Maybe you can come back at the end with the survey. You're starting with a typing test at the beginning. Maybe you could come back at the end with a typing test. And again, this idea of this letter that they write to themselves could be a way that they could come back at the end or at a certain point in time and kind of self-assess where they're at.
Charlie, I just want to say, our goal here was, as you think about how broad the differences are between each of these different types that we talked about of teachers, and then you lay on top of that some of you are math teachers, and some of you are language teachers, and some of you are reading teachers, and some of you are science teachers, right? And some of you are CTE teachers or ESL teachers, right? And so there's all kinds of differences there. What we needed to give you was a tool that if you'll dig in a little bit with a pencil and a highlighter, you can make it your own, and you can create something really powerful in your classroom that meets your needs as an educator and answers that question that we said at the beginning, which is there's a gap in adult education right now between the need to teach this and the content, but there's nothing on the how. And this, with a highlighter and a red pencil and some time, you can answer the how in a way that's most meaningful for your situation.
Dan, I think John Brown's asking, did you leave out the history teachers on purpose?
Sorry, John. Sorry.
Yeah, again, I'm probably getting a little bit in the weeds, but I just wanted everyone on this to see kind of the overall structure. And again, we're really excited about this. And I think Dan is able to zoom out and kind of talk from the big picture perspective. And he's exactly right. There are a lot of hows in here. This isn't an exhaustive compendium of all the hows and ways to do this, but a lot of really good suggestions kind of all around this specific topic. But then again, can be used in a lot of different settings. And so the last thing I'll share before I turn it back over to Dan is that after all of those lesson plans, all 17 of them for each individual unit, is we have an appendix that has a lesson plan template. So a blank template, if you wanted to use this, again, it could be for this specific content. It could be for your own digital literacy. Again, you're welcome to do that. Places to write things in. We have a template pacing guide where you can make notes and put in the things that you want to work on or that you want to do. And then beyond that, some of the different resources, worksheets, things that we mention throughout the lesson plans, we include here as kind of a quick reference that teachers can print. So KWL, so kind of a lesson plan around that. And again, graphic organizers to help teachers actually implement some of those activities that we were talking about. So again, we're really excited about this. That was probably maybe more than was needed for an initial introduction, but we're excited for you all to dive in and take a look and start to figure out kind of what parts you're really going to like. So I guess before I turn it over to Dan, I guess I would ask that to everyone, would be if you can put back in the chat what type you are, 1, 2, or 3, and if there's a specific section of this guide that you're most interested to either explore more or actually start to use. So if you could do that, that would be great. And then we'll turn it back over to Dan.
Yeah, so think about, is it the lesson plans that perked your ears up? Is it the pacing guides? Is it the activities? And if you'll give us that 1, 2, 3, it really helps us, again, to think about, what's the next step for us in helping you when we can understand what your particular elements are. So great. Steph, was there a part for you right there that I'm missing, or am I supposed to go into my side now?
So you.
Oh, okay.
But hi again, everyone.
Steph, was there anything that I missed that you feel like you want to share or touch on before Dan jumps back into his part?
No, I think you did a great job. I just do want to reiterate that we really did write this with the intent that you could put it into any classroom. It's kind of, even when we talked, it was one of those where if you're a teacher who's kind of rushed and all, you can pick this up, pull a lesson, and just go to town with it right then. So again, I just hope you all look at it, find something useful and make it your own.
Great. All right, let me get up the right screen here and then share my screen. And then we will be ready to go into a little bit around computer essentials. So a couple of questions have come up, and I just want to reiterate that although the foundation for this is our computer essentials program, that's, you know, how we built it. The scope and sequence of computer essentials is built around the IC3 credential, which, if you're not familiar with that, it is a Department of Labor recognized, industry recognized credential on basic computing skills. And we correlated to the IC3 level 1 standards, which basically takes you up until they start going into things like coding, which we didn't feel was relevant for basic computer skills for, you know, the average person in any career field. But again, this scope and sequence it's designed to build, you know, step by step so that you're building knowledge in a thorough way. But if you're using North Star or some other curriculum, there'd be no reason you couldn't modify this and still get a lot of benefit out of thinking about how this is structured, or the activities that we have, the unit introductions and other things like that, ways to overlay this in a math classroom versus a reading classroom versus an ESL classroom. And so I think you're going to see a lot of opportunity for you, regardless of what content you're using. Now, I am going to take a minute to show you some things about computer essentials, because if you're using computer essentials with this guide, with your normal academic instruction that you're doing, the overlay becomes really easy because it's all built right in here. Students will come in and take assessments. The course is divided into 3 areas: computing fundamentals, which we're going to look at that scope and sequence here in just a second, key applications and information, and living online. So if I scroll down here, we're just looking at the scope and sequence, and I will tell you that we are correlated to the North Star standards, the Seattle Digital Equity standards, the IC3 standards. You have all kinds of correlations that you can come in and see as a teacher, and you're looking at the teacher interface right now. So computing fundamentals starts at your basics. What are those common computer skills, such as using a mouse, clicking on buttons, links, and menus? So this program starts at a very low level. Students with very little digital skills can come in and address it. And we are diligently working to get the Spanish version of this completed. It'll be completed soon. I want to say 100% by the end of the year, but I'm a little hesitant, but we're not far away from that. So this will be available in Spanish as well, so that Spanish speakers will have access to that. Any of these units, a student can take their test out quiz. So when they start the unit, they say, I think I've got this. They can test out of that area. And if they score high enough on the quiz, it'll just move them right on. So they can move very quickly through the content if they can demonstrate the skills. The getting started section is next, where we're going to look at things like, you know, typing on a keyboard, entering text in form fields, the computer desktop. What does it look like? How do you resize windows and understand the interface? Then we're going to go into using computers, things like filling out forms, finding scanning media, touch screens, all of that content that gets them organized on the day-to-day, just almost physical aspects of working with computers, including a lesson on keyboarding that allows them to practice keyboarding as well. Computer skills like navigating, now we start getting into some things that are a little deeper. Now we start having to use some of those critical thinking skills about how you mentally work through a computer, how you make the computer be a friend of yours instead of something that's going to make you pull out your hair and drive you crazy. And then understanding computers, how to interact with them, what operating systems are like, understanding the internet, how you get around on the web, what it actually is, and how you connect to it. I would imagine if I asked how many of you have become your school technology experts simply because at one time in your life, you helped someone else in the school get on the Wi-Fi and suddenly you were promoted to the tech expert in your school, I imagine a bunch of you would be raising your hands and nodding your heads right now. All the lessons are engaging. So all of this content is built for adult students, okay? It's built to engage them. And I'm just gonna click on this lesson on adapting to new technology and just show you a minute or so of it for those of you that have not seen this. I see a couple of folks asking about whether this is available as part of an essential education purchase. This is a unique program with its own pricing structure, but it can all live under your essential ed umbrella. And so we do give discounts for adding this into our other programs. We're going to give you a link here at the end so you can get a demo of it and try a seat out and play around with it as well. But let's look at a lesson for just a minute.
New technology is constantly changing, and this lesson gives you strategies to make it easier to learn new technologies. Technology changes all the time. Computer programs get updated and websites get redesigned. New apps are developed all the time, and so are new kinds of technology, like tablets and all-in-one touchscreen computers. So, how do you deal with new operating systems, new programs, and new websites? It's time to learn some strategies to adapt as technology changes.
So you can see at this part of this first unit, we're now moving into that part where we're teaching thinking skills as much as technical skills. Because all of us, you know, every time something else new comes out, we have to start thinking about how are we going to, you know, address this? And we have to have the right mindset to do that, right? You have to have kind of an exploratory mindset to do it. I just wanted to note that it is closed captioned. Again, you can adjust the sound. There's transcripts, and you can use the menu to kind of skip through the lesson. And we'll just introduce you to a second to Maria, one of our other avatars, who's going to talk a little bit about a challenge she ran into.
I guess I better go to Roberto's school website and check what his homework is. What's this message? This website requires a new version of your browser. Try upgrading your web browser. I need a new web browser? That doesn't make sense. This worked just last week. Why does there have to be something new?
So I'm just going to pause it there because I bet if I asked you to raise your hand, every single one of us have had the exact same thought that she has right there. Why do they have to keep changing this and updating this? And so you can see that the content is really relevant to students today. It's based in things that we all are dealing with and that we can all connect to, and giving them the instruction, the support, and the mindset to move through it. So I'm just going to stop there for the issue of time here. But I wanted you to see a little bit about how the lesson is kind of organized and the type of delivery that it has to engage students. Let's just go real quick because I want to show you the other two areas and let you see a little bit about those. If I look at key applications and information, this one starts with finding information. So how do you define what you need? What are your sources of information? Making sure that they're good sources too. You know, there's a lot of bad information out on the web. Evaluating your information, using traditional tools, drawing conclusions from your information. Then we have a whole section on organizing it. How do you get organized digitally? The different types of files you run into, how you might organize files in your life and your email and your desktops. And then spreadsheets. This is basic agnostic. It's not, you know, Excel or Google Sheets. It's basic agnostic information on how to function within spreadsheets at level 1, level 2, level 3 kind of elements of those spreadsheets. Same idea here when we start looking at organizing and showing information, interpreting and showing. We have organizing written information, which covers basic word processing features. We have tables, charts, and graphs, which can come back to, you know, either in your word processor or in your spreadsheet. And then presenting information using basic presentation software, whether it be PowerPoint or Google Slides, things like that, so that students get exposure to that. And then collaboration. So what is digital collaboration? How does it look when I use chat or messaging or video or voice calls? Review and feedback, getting started with Google Drive because it's such a prevalent piece of so much technology out there. And so this whole section are these key applications and information. And then finally, living online, I think this one's really important nowadays because our students need to understand many of the risks and other elements that are out there. So we've got social interaction, participating in internet communities, social interaction, and anonymity on the internet. We need to think about what that anonymity means and how it impacts us individually. Privacy and security, so we have maintaining privacy, internet security issues, and copyright issues that are important to students and schools. Technology risks, so we talk about how websites track you, keeping phones and devices safe. I love that we added this health risks of technology. It's really important that there's a section on this, and as you can see, this is not old content we're showing you. This is a very new topic that's important, and it's part of this course, as is keeping kids safe online, which I know is important to many of your students that are trying to better their lives and their families' lives as well. And then online services, things like social and consumer services, entertainment services, transportation, civic life online. And then we have a whole section on job-related elements. So talking about networking, finding jobs, researching job opportunities, technology that you need for resumes, online and desktop searching, job application forms, and then mobile devices, a section on that talks about device ownership, using your apps, Wi-Fi, and cellular data as well. So this is a highly robust curriculum, 3 full sections. Now I got some real cool bonuses for you here. One is that all of these lessons correlate or automatically badge in Credly. So if you're familiar with Credly, it is an online digital badging course. And so
Welcome to Computer Essentials. My name.
Let's just get started and let me put in this. Okay. And we're going to choose a subject. And we're going to go to computing fundamentals. Oh, it's going to make me go through this lesson first. 1 second.
Welcome to Computer Essentials. You've taken a first step to improve your.
Get off of that. Maybe it won't let me go back. There we go. Okay, well, everything badges in Credly for you. So as the students earn badges in each of those sections, in each of those elements of scope and sequence, each of those units, the program will automatically send a badge to Credly. They can create an online portfolio for themselves, and they'll have those badges building as they go through. Each section, Living Online, Key Applications, has its own assessment and certificate, and then the whole program creates a certificate as well. So you have multiple elements of demonstration that a student can take to employers at the end of a program, ways for you to highlight their accomplishments and let them use that as part of their portfolio as well. So let's see, was there something else I wanted to say? I did that. Okay, so the content, as I said, is really robust. And what we're going to do is give you access to a demonstration seat in that. Were there any questions or anything, Charlie, that I needed?
Yeah, Dan, I think you mentioned this, but it was sorry, I should have had the person. They were asking if it's available in Spanish. You said closer to the end of the year, is that correct?
Yeah, it's there's a number of lessons that we're still translating. So some of it's done, some of it's not, but we're getting close. So as soon as we have it complete and tested, it'll launch. I think we'll probably be able to complete it before the end of 2023. But it obviously takes some time to do the testing and make sure everything reads and sounds correctly.
Awesome.
Anything else that had come up?
Yeah, there was Victoria was asking about PD credit. I figured we could talk about that at the end.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Steph, did I miss anything else that you can think of?
Oh, I think you got it.
Okay.
Dan, can I just say, one of the things that the trainers at Essential Ed, one of the questions we get all the time that have our content is, and as you were seeing with Dan, it's kind of comes back to the original question is, why this guide? Why did we write it? And a lot of this content can be done independently by students. A lot of teachers will assign content for students to work on outside of class or encourage them to work on it outside of class. But one of the key questions that our team gets asked all the time is, how do I bring this into my classroom? How do I use it more and interact with it more? And so this guide is really providing examples and ways to do that. And so, if that's a question that you've had or you've wondered, again, this guide is a great resource to use to figure out ways that you can start to take those baby steps to interacting and using Essential Ed synchronously with your students. I guess that can be in person or, online.
Yeah, and one other point to this too that we didn't discuss, but anyone any administrator on here, you could make this a study group for your staff. One of the things, as Charlie showed in that survey we did, was that getting teachers up to speed with technology was just, a small fraction behind getting students up to technology. So you could imagine using this and a seat in our Computer Essentials program and doing a unit a month and doing 15 minutes as a little PLC group discussion, and everybody comes to it. You could define some activities using the guide, and every teacher goes through unit 1 during week 1 or month 1 or however you want to do it. And, you have a short meeting where you talk about what you learned, what was new, how do you integrate this into your classroom, what would be interesting, blah, blah, blah. And you move on to the next thing. And for very low cost, you could use this to train your educators on key elements of digital literacy as well. So it has, don't forget that element exists also.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so if you're scanning the QR code here, that will get you the opportunity to schedule a demo of the Computer Essentials program. So if you click that and fill that out, that gets you in our system. Once you're in our system, I guarantee you're going to get the copy of this guide and more information as we release more elements and do more training on it. You'll also get a demo seat of Computer Essentials, so you can go in and play around with it and try it out and see what you think about it, and have some of that experience as well. We're glad to set up a time to walk through it more closely and spend more time with it with your sales rep. We will send out this guide through this COABE list. So the fact that you signed up for this webinar will definitely get you this guide. So we're going to send it out as soon as we do it, as soon as we get it finalized, which should happen in the next day to 2 days. And we'll get you the digital copy of it. As I said in chat a couple of times, we will have print copies available this fall. So they're going to the printer now. And as you go to your state conferences or national conferences, or get in touch with your sales rep and say, I really want a copy of this. And when we get the physical copies available, we'll have plenty of them to hand out and make available to you as well. And for those of you that are in corrections, we will definitely get you this via this email address. And I hope you see something that's useful. This is our commitment to you as a company, that we're not just here to make money, but we're here to be at your side and be a partner in educating folks. And this is a key element to helping with that. So we hope you find that useful. Steph, I think you wanted them to give us information about how they're using it, right? Oh, she put it in chat.
I did. I actually dropped it in the chat even, that yes, we want you all to use it, improve it. Tell us about what you're doing with it. Share those lessons that you come up with too. And this is where I say, if you know me, Steph at essentialed.com. because I'll use them too. So please use it. Let us know what we can do better. Thank you.
Yeah. Charlie, anything else?
No, I shared my last little piece. I put a link to the demo request in the chat. It's a long URL, but it should get you to the right place. We just appreciate everybody's time for being here. We're really excited about this resource, and it will be in your hands, or I guess your inbox soon.
Yep. And tell your friends that this is out here. Spread the word. Help us get the word out there, because we want people using it and having access to it. So James, with that, I think we send it back over to you. Thanks so much to COABE. Thanks for the partnership we have with you, and thanks for giving us this opportunity.
Dan, Charlie, and Steph, thank you so much. We are definitely going to tell our friends. What a resource. So awesome. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I'm going to launch one more quick webinar poll. If you could, before you log off, if you could fill that out real quick, let us know how it was. But what an awesome presentation. Thank you so much, Dan, Charlie, and Steph. We appreciate your partnership, and we certainly appreciate everything you're doing for adult education and adult literacy. So thank you.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it.
I hope everybody has a good week. And with that, we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.